Have you ever stopped to think about what an animal might do when she finds out that his owner is in danger? This is a situation where everything seems to be normal, but all of a sudden, something goes wrong in an unexpected way. This is the history that we are going to tell you. One of those moments that seem to be the output of the movie, but that happened to be true. A dog, with a single companion of the four-legged, become the unlikely hero of an emergency situation. Have you ever gone through something like that? One where the intelligence and loyalty of an animal, and were amazed at all? Stay with me until the very end, because that's all you're going to find out right now might surprise you and change your view about these people so special. It all started in the morning, in common with the owner's calm in your house, all by himself. It was a normal, carefree, and his faithful dog is always by his side, as usual. But all of a sudden, something happened. In a health crisis, a sudden drop-in, which caused him to lose all your senses and fell to the ground, not being able to ask for help. Imagine the anxiety in a situation like this, where the man is helpless and unable to communicate with each other. At that time, it will be that your pet has done. As a single dog, without a word, he managed to realize the gravity of the situation and act in a way that is so clever. Have you ever wondered if dogs actually have the ability to figure out what's going on around you? The answer, you're going to find out right now, with a story that demonstrates once again that the connection between the humans and the animals that go far beyond what we could ever imagine. While the owner was right there, unconscious on the floor, her dog began to show signs of restlessness. It was not as he stood there, waiting for someone else to solve your situation. On the contrary, it has started to circulate around it, and with a power that seemed to her as if trying to find a solution for you. It was at that moment that something unexpected has happened to it. The dog ran up to the table and pulled with the teeth on the telephone and dragged it to the device to the body of its owner. It may sound simple, but it was crucial to prevent an emergency, to be replaced by someone from the outside. This story shows us that, at times, the hope comes from where you least expect it, and that it is the intelligence. The animal can be much more strong than you think, but as it turned out later, that action too amazing, as the phone fell to the ground, and that has made all the difference. Stay with me, because that's all it's going to be even more clear in the next few minutes. If you can identify with this story, or if you are curious to find out more about how these unexpected moments that will transform a difficult situation, you leave it here in the comments on what you played so far. Your feedback is very important to us, because it will help you to create a community where we all learn and share their experiences. In addition to this, if you like what you've heard here, don't forget to like the video. It makes a world of difference for most people to be able to keep up with the content and inspire you with stories such as this one. And of course, if you want to keep finding in these narratives, awesome, and stay up to date on topics that touch the heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your participation is what makes this space to grow, to strengthen the network of trade and empathy. So don't hesitate to comment, like, and subscribe. Every action there is an incentive for us to continue bringing you stories that you want, and that it shows the power of hope and of the mind and the connection between humans and animals. Now let's move in together, because there's still so much more to come on this journey is just beginning. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that is exactly the essence of this small action that you will often encounter of the impact that changes lives. It's not just about sharing a story or make a comment, but rather to understand the magnitude of what's happening on the back of each and every little thing. Each and every word of encouragement, every warm smile, an act of empathy, not just a detail, isolated, but is a very important part in the construction of a chain of processing that extends far beyond what we could ever imagine. In this connection, it seems to be so subtle in the beginning, it becomes an invisible force that binds together the hearts and minds, creating a network of support that echoes in the routine of day-to-day environment in which no one tends to notice. When you see the dynamics, we find that the impact is not confined to the present moment. It multiplies, spreads out, creating a domino effect that can reach the places which before seemed to be unattainable. It's as if every single act of kindness, it was like a seed planted in fertile soil, which over time, it blooms into real change, in a new perspective, a mindset that is more conscious and sensitive. These changes are, for the most small, you seem to have the power to change the whole trajectory of challenging limiting beliefs, and to reveal the truth hidden. It is often right under our noses. They are beings of high impact, able to influence and modify the environment around us simply by choosing to act with intention. And it is precisely at this point that the transformation becomes real. When you begin to realize that our decisions and actions carry greater weight than we imagined, everything changes. We went to see, in addition, that is, on the surface, dipping down behind the scenes of one's own actions, and to discover the real power is in the consistency of our choices on a daily basis. This is a journey of self-discovery, and to connect with each other, it is, in fact, a constant revelation. After all, behind every smile, every word of encouragement, or a gesture of solidarity, there is a story of hope renewed, an impact. A lot of times, you don't even realize at the time, but that leaves indelible marks on the lives of those who receive it. And then, in a movement of discovery, it is common to have questions. To questions about what it really does make a difference, and with the potential to transform the world around us. But by then, it comes to the beauty of this journey, realizing that the change starts within each and every one of us. Every little decision, every moment's reflection, it's a chance to rewrite our own history and to adjust the focus and opening up space for the spirit, a more positive and proactive. As we come to understand the true impact of our actions, we are agents of transformation, which becomes self-perpetuating, and that it inspires others to stand up and do their part. Now, I want you to go even deeper on this issue, because this is the connection between our actions. Aware of the impact of what we produce has a disclosure that you just realize the truth, which is hidden by the back of all of that, is that when you turn to, in your own mind, you will end up impacting the environment in a way that's more powerful than any of the stress or external stress. Great. It's not just the big things, but the one consistency in the way we think, to act, to communicate, and to relate to the people and the animals who live with us. This is the journey of inner transformation, is the one that actually generates a lasting change, creating a new narrative of hope, courage, and authenticity. That is, at one time or another, it ends up infecting everything and everyone around him. For this reason, each and every step taken in this direction, it is a win, and a chance to deepen the understanding and to the strengthening of this network are positive. This is a building on the daily, made up of small choices that, together, make up a story from a real impact on the lives of those who believe in the power of a sincere attitude. The truth is hidden, is that when you invest in your own development, you will end up becoming a source of inspiration. As an example, it is possible to change the reality of mind and more aware, and a disposition proper to make up the difference. This is the culmination of a journey that we're living in here, on a journey which reveals that, deep down, we're all the protagonists of a story of transformation that begins only when you decide to take the first steps with hope and determination. And, while the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the road ahead is full of possibilities. Every decision we make, every thought that we have cultivated, it is a very important part in the narrative of the impact of hope. And then, when you understand the true power that lies within you, we can do it with more intention, creating a reality that is aligned with our values and dreams. It is this consciousness that leads us to understand that change is not something that is far, far away, but it's a thing that happens all the time, in the sum of small actions that, taken together, they build up a story of transformation, courage, and authenticity. By the end, you're sure to what this journey is unique and is made of discoveries and revelations contained. And when you think about all of this, it's impossible not to feel a desire to move forward, to explore more deeply these behind-the-scenes unseen that shape our lives, and understand the true impact of being born of the inside of a mind that is renewed each and every day. When you have this understanding, it becomes part of our way of life. Everything around you begins to change in ways that we don't always get to see it right away, but they most certainly leave their mark on the history of each and every one of us. He writes that the impact right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that's a transformation that happens when you begin to understand the true strength of one's inner self. It is not something that manifests itself only at the surface or in the visible actions. In fact, it begins to seep in behind the scenes of our minds to shape our decision-making in a way that a lot of times we don't even notice. It is as if a new layer is perceived to be the overlapping of the one we had before it, to reveal the truth hidden before it was hidden by the back of limiting beliefs and old patterns of behavior. This kind of faith, that it seemed to be just as strong in the past, you will begin to look like the fragile in the face of a more in-depth understanding, a kind of a wake-up call to our true selves. When you have this mindset, it starts to consolidate. It's a sort of impact is a silent but powerful. Each and every choice that you make shall be affected by such a change in its internal structure, and what appeared to be a routine, automatic transmission is transformed into an opportunity to grow aware of it. It's as if, when you open your eyes to our own journey, we begin to see the details of that before you went unnoticed, and the signs that show the ways that best align with who you really are. And, in the process, the decisions that we make are no longer just an automated response to what the world throws at you. And if you make steps are designed for a comfortable, more real, more authentic. All of this takes place within a species, the transformation of silence, which is often confused with fate or by chance, but it turns out to be the result of a much deeper connection with our inner selves. It's an impact that goes beyond the surface, reaching to the very beginning of our way of thinking, feeling, and acting. And, to the extent that such change, if it is deeper, it turns out, a new vision of the world, a new sense of possibility, which is often the wake-up call. At this time, our story starts out to be a rewrite. It is not for the paradigms in which we are placed, but I live in the US, the things that have always been there, just waiting for the opportunity to come to the fore. This revelation is more subtle as it may seem. It is able to impact not only our career, but also the way in which we have an influence on the others around us. After all, when someone goes through an inner transformation, a genuine, this change is reflected in the actions, the words, the energy that it conveys. It is as if a new light was on, illuminating the paths which before seemed to be a dark and unknown. And at that time, the day-to-day to day becomes more and more clear, more deliberate, almost as if we were being guided by an invisible force. But a lot of this, which shows the impact of a change in mindset. From there on, everything starts to gain a whole new meaning. Every effort, every decision, every obstacle is overcome. It becomes part of a narrative, more broadly, where the transformation of the lead wire. And then, without even realizing it, we begin to attract the opportunities and people and experiences that before seemed out of reach because it is our vibration that has changed. This is a change that is born from the inside to the outside. It is the essence of a journey of self-discovery leading to the development of a true great message. It changes our history from the inside to the outside for all time. And it is precisely this connection between the internal and the external which reveals the true force of the impact, the one who is logged into our hearts and on our journey of growth. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that understanding the impact of the procedure is, in fact, it is a key that unlocks the door to the possibilities not imagined to be possible. This is how you find out who is behind every decision. There is an invisible force that could be turned on, guiding our actions, our words, and even the way we see the world. When you begin to understand it all turns to fear can give way to courage. The question becomes, trust and hope is strengthened with a certain quiet that we are in control of our own destiny. This is the real advantage of an inward change, which manifests itself in subtle ways, but for a long-lasting impact, changing not only who we are, but also how we are able to influence everything around us. And it is at this point that we realize that a journey is not only about achieving goals outside, but when you become someone who does not live with a new awareness, a new way of understanding that echoes in the way that does work, love, or just live in the present. This is a shift in perspective that is, as an internal revolution, a revolution which at the same time, it's quiet and powerful, and that takes us to discover our true essence, and that is how we can use it to make an impact in a way that goes beyond the surface. And it all starts with a decision. You decide to see beyond the surface, to unravel the hidden truths, and in particular, to take responsibility for their own transformation, and that it is, in essence, the greater the impact we can have in our history and in the history of those who are next to us. He comments that, it makes no sense to me. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that's the true transformation doesn't just happen on the surface. It breaks into our behind the scenes to internal, and those details are silent. They often go unnoticed, but that shapes the whole of the journey. It is in this space our invisible, and where we believe the more back to the roots of our deepest fears and our own convictions, the more solid will remain hidden, and that the change really begins to take shape. And this, on the other hand, is a result of a single decision on the surface, but a revolution in our way of thinking and the way we see the world, to the people, and especially to ourselves. When we begin to discover the truths that are hidden within each of us, we realize that many of our limitations does not come from external factors, but from the stories that we tell ourselves, of course. In these stories, which are often driven by past experiences, influences come from a lifelong, and it turned out to be absolute truth, in its head. From the moment we start to question this narrative, to make room for a new perspective, and it all starts to get a different size. It's like opening a window that had been closed for years, letting the light into every dark corner that we have. In the process of self-examination, as well as courage, plays a major role. It is not easy to face your own shadows, to admit that we still have insecurities, or is it our own decisions that have been influenced by the patterns, or both? But it is precisely in this moment of vulnerability that is, the real power comes from. Because when faced with these truths, inside, we take the decisive step forward to the release. This release doesn't just mean to abandon the old ways, but to understand that we're able to rewrite them and create new patterns that are in alignment with who you truly want to be. This is the essence of transformation, a shift from the inside to the outside, which leads to a direct impact on our external reality. As they delve deeper in the universe is built, we begin to realize that our daily decisions, the ones that seem small and harmless, they are a direct result of what we believe and what we are conscious or unconscious of it ourselves. In a decision that appears to be simple, how to choose one's attitude in the face of a challenge, it is a mirror of the state of our mental well-being. If you are stuck in a cycle of doubt, fear, or this makes every choice becomes a battle on the inside. But when we work on this basis, to strengthen our minds, we begin to notice the subtle changes, however powerful, in the way we react to situations and in our attitude to life. This is a journey of discovery. It also reveals a behind the scenes of our true selves, and those aspects are often avoided to confront for fear of what we might find. But when we have the courage to explore these spots, we have found that authenticity is the key to a lasting change. Be true to who you are, and to acknowledge our imperfections, to accept that we are still in the construction phase. The whole thing becomes an act of courage that drives a change in a deep and genuine. And in doing so, we begin to have an impact not only on ourselves, but also for people around us, creating a chain of influence which extends naturally to us. In the midst of this journey, there are revelations which change the game, which will show you the true nature of our inner power and strength. These revelations often come from unexpected encounters, moments of reflection, or even just difficulties with which compel us to look into it more closely. And it is at this point that we realize that the transformation is not a destination, but a path of continual, constant evolution that requires dedication, patience, and, above all, self-knowledge. Every step you take, every decision is a conscious, reinforces this mind, which became the solid foundation on which we can build you a life more in tune with our inner selves more fully. And so, as we journey on this road of self-discovery, it is clear that the impact of such a change within the echo in our history, in a way that it is not always possible to predict in advance. It's like a transformation from quiet, you'll be rolling in, and influence our actions, our relationships, our dreams, and even our way of looking at the world. And in it, there are behind the scenes of a life in which, prior to and limited by the beliefs and fears, and now it is revealed, full of possibility, of hope, and a new narrative that we all have the power to write about each day. And it all starts with a decision to look beyond the surface, to explore the hidden truth, and to take responsibility for each and every step of this journey of transformation. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, for it is precisely in the understanding of these truths that are hidden from you we find the key to real and lasting change. Often, we are caught up in a routine. It seems that it cannot be removed, believing that it is our circumstances that are the result of external factors which are outside our control. But, in fact, a large part of who we are shaped by our own decisions and by the stories that we tell ourselves and the beliefs that we have accepted it without question. It's as if you're using a lens that distorted, which prevents us from seeing the opportunities that are right in front of his eyes, hidden in the simplicity of a shift in perspective. When we first started to investigate this hidden truth, one thing that's fascinating is this. We realize that our actions have an impact that is far greater than we might have previously thought. Each and every decision, however small it may seem, it has a power that echoes in our journey of transformation. And at the same time, we have found that many of these decisions come from a place unseen, a collection of beliefs that are rooted in the subconscious mind, that a lot of times they don't even have to go to work to ask questions. It's as if we loaded up a backpack full of weights, their feelings, and they prevent us from moving forward in a very light way. But the recognition of these weights, we can begin to release them one at a time, so make space for a new narrative, one that is more in tune with who we really are and who we can become. In this process, the mind plays a very important role. It serves as the filter through which we see the world and interpret our experiences. In a growth mindset, for example, encourages us to see the challenges as well as opportunities for learning, while a fixed mindset holds us to the idea that our abilities are limited and non-changeable. In the transformation, and thus, it begins in the mind, in the way we choose to interpret our own stories to tell. And here comes the revelation that so many people are ignorant of true change doesn't happen from the outside in, but from the inside to the outside. It is a journey of self-discovery, where each and every insight about our own limitations that gives us the power to rewrite the script of our lives with courage, purpose, and authenticity. The decision to confront those truths that are hidden from the courage, because many times it says something that we would prefer to keep hidden, even from ourselves. It is a journey of self-discovery that challenges our comfort zones and forces us to face our own shadows. But it is precisely because of this confrontation, it is an opportunity for growth to be true. When you accept what you have found, without a trial, and we take the first step to liberation, the latter is the catalyst that turns the question into certain fear into motivation, and the uncertainty in the interests of clarity. And so, we begin to understand that our history is not written by the external circumstances, but by our responses to domestic, our daily choices, our decisions, mindful of going forward. At the bottom, on this understanding, it reveals a truth that often lies hidden behind the fog of doubt. We are the authors of our own lives. And that's authorship comes with responsibility, yes, but also freedom. The freedom to choose from in new ways and create a new meaning, turning obstacles into stairs that is on the rise. Each and every step that we take, in this sense, it is a statement of who have the power to shape our reality and to live in a story. It really makes sense for us. And it is precisely at this point that the day-to-day becomes more and more intense, more engrossing, as each discovery reveals a new layer to the hidden potential of the inner strength that, until now, remained a problem. And so, as we've explored in these behind the scenes to internal, we find that the impact of all this change echoes not only in our own lives, but also for those that are around us. Because of the radical change on the inside, we have an influence on the world around us in ways that oftentimes we are not able to anticipate. Every decision, every change in mindset, it's like a seed planted in the good soil. They will grow and grow, positively influencing the entire network of relationships, our actions, and even the way we perceive the world. This is a real revolution in the silence. It starts in the mind. But if that is so evident in our daily life, and when you understand it, one thing is clear. The truth is hidden, that we have, many times, it is our most important ally in the transformation. When we come to investigate, so we dig deep into our stories, we find an endless supply of possibilities for them. There isn't a magic bullet, nor a ready-made recipe. bravery, just the courage to look beyond the surface, to allow the power to change has always been with us. This is the culmination of a journey to discover, accept, and respond to authenticity, to you, knowing that every step brings us to the next level, more aware and aligned with our higher purpose. And in it, life shows its true colors, the more vibrant, more intense, and more on our. Whatever your story, it can still be rewritten, chapter by chapter. You just need to have the courage to face the hidden truth of who you carry with you, to understand the impact that their decisions have on their own account, and above all, to trust in the power that lies within you, to create a new reality. The more the light, the more real and full of possibilities. And as long as this transformation occurs, the universe conspires in favor of those who decide to take the next step. And with hope, with determination, and with the certainty that behind every challenge, there is an opportunity to become the best version of yourself. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that's the journey of transformation is often uncovers a truth that hides only a few have the courage to face it. The biggest obstacle to our progress. We are the same. It's that inner voice that insists to tell you that you're not able to, and that the past defines who you are, or what the external circumstances determine our own destiny. And in fact, this is all just an illusion created by the mind limited to, a story built over the course of a year, and they often don't even realize they are feeding you. When you really start to think about your decision-making, we've noticed that they carry a much greater impact than we can imagine. For each choice, as small as it may seem to you, it's like a seed planted in our journey. Some germinate rapidly, bringing in the fruits of self-confidence and growth, while others remain buried in the ground of the doubt, hoping that some outside force will make them thrive. But the truth is that in order for a transformation to be sustainable, it is important to understand that it all begins within ourselves. What happens when all around you is just a scenario, but it is the roadmap of our history has been written by our own attitudes, thoughts, and beliefs. And that brings us to the revelation that many of avoiding that, too often, we are caught up in a vicious cycle of self-sabotage, because the mind is used to look for excuses. It's easy to blame the world, the people, the conditions, and to take responsibility for our own choices. This resistance is like an invisible barrier that blocks any progress to be true. And here comes the question: how to break the cycle? How to turn a mindset that insists on repeating the old standard? The answer to this lies in the courage to face up to the truth, the more uncomfortable it may be, and is willing to rewrite our history and step-by-step instructions. This is a journey of self-discovery reveals that many of our limitations are built upon beliefs you don't even ask. For example, we believe that we can't achieve something because they are not good enough, or is it because the world is not fair? But in essence, that's all it is to him that we can make a change. And that change begins with the decision to challenge these automatic thoughts, to seek to understand where they're coming from, and more importantly, to be replaced by a much more powerful version, and positive. This is how to do a cleanup of the mental, and eliminating that which no longer serves, and open up the space for new possibilities. To do this, we can begin to understand that true transformation is not something that just happens 1 hour to the next, but rather a continuous process of evolution. Each victory, each made a conscious decision, it strengthens our self-confidence and strengthens our resolve. And then, over time, we find that the impact of this change will go far beyond the results. It affects the way we see the world and the people around us. And of course, we are the same. From there, it all becomes a question of alignment between what we think, feel, and do, by creating a powerful synergy that drives our quest to evolve to a better version of ourselves. And it is precisely at this point that many will begin to understand the role of inner change and the creation of a new reality. When we decided to put our energy on what really matters to you, and the universe begins to conspire in favor of aligning the opportunities, people, and circumstances to you that before would have seemed impossible. This is the dance of the invisible, of the possibilities that it will only happen when we are truly open to such a change, from the inside to the outside. And then, as we advanced, we perceived that the greatest wealth of this journey is not over the results of the exterior, but on the strength that you gain by overcoming our own limitations, and the courage to face the unknown, and on the understanding that the next step you through, more and more challenging as that is, it leads us to exactly where we are supposed to be. This understanding, in and of itself, is already a far-reaching transformation, because it frees us from the weight of the expectations of both external and puts us in charge of our own destiny. And, in doing so, we have learned that the key is persistence, the courage to continue even when things seem too hard to fit into the story. After all, it is the real change happens when you decide that you no longer will allow doubt or fear to control your actions. This is where the journey really gets back up, and what seemed to be a distant begin to come true, little by little, step-by-step instructions. The magic happens when you realize that you are the principal authors of our history, and are capable of rewriting each chapter, along with the courage, the hope, and an open mind, which reveals the hidden potential in all of us. He comments that, "It makes no sense to me. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that's the true transformation comes when we dive into the very core of what truly motivates us to understand the roots of our own making. Too many times, and have spent years living on the surface, followed by the routines that seem to be automatic, with no question as to why they act in a particular way, or to keep in certain patterns, which in fact in the limit. It's that time of reflection we begin to realize that change is not something that is external, but it is a journey to inner, is a silent revolution that is happening in our minds and in our hearts. From the moment we begin to break down these beliefs that have been imposed upon, or that we have incurred in the course of a lifetime, we opened up the space for a real release. It's kind of like an awakening, a revelation of what we are capable of shaping our own destiny, regardless of the external circumstances. This change of mind is the first step to that, is something that we hope will really take. Because before taking action in the outer world, we need to take action within our own selves. This is what we call a paradigm shift, a reversal of the thoughts that once were, now, in the drive to move forward with courage. And this is a change of mindset. A lot of times, he reveals a truth that hides it, which has remained concealed under layers of fear, insecurity, or doubt. When we are able to see beyond what our physical eyes are showing, you start to realize that it is all a matter of perspective. The difficulties that seemed insuperable, in fact, they are opportunities in disguise, and the invitations to evolve and become better versions of ourselves. This insight is a powerful impact because it frees us from the weight of believing that the world is out there to decide your next destination. The truth is hidden, that is, that we are the ones who write the narrative of our lives, day by day, decision by decision. And here comes the importance of understanding behind the scenes of the process of transformation. What happens behind the curtains of our minds, it often goes unnoticed, but it's right there. That's all if you decide to. The automatic thoughts, our emotions which control our actions, and the stories we tell ourselves to form an invisible web that guides the choices we make. When you begin to unravel those behind the scenes, we can reschedule. This tour is internal, and replacing old patterns with new scripts, achievement, self-confidence, and purpose. This is a journey of self-discovery that takes courage, because we often have to face uncomfortable truths, but that, in essence, are the key to our evolution. In doing so, we become more aware of our daily decisions. For each choice, as small as it may seem, it has a direct impact on the quality of our experience. And it's this awareness that we are the authors of our story. It gives us the freedom to be enormous. We are no longer at the mercy of external circumstances, or of the factors that seem to be out of our control. On the contrary, we begin to understand that true strength comes from within, and the alignment between the way we think, feel, and do. When a harmony is done, the past life, the flowing one way, lighter in weight, more real, and more connected to the things that truly make us happy. And it is at this point in our journey gains a new dimension, because we learn to see that all the revelations of the deepest aren't necessarily in the big events, but in how we interpret and respond to them. The transformation is, in fact, it is a journey of self-discovery, continuous, where each step reveals a new layer of potential that was dormant. And as we move forward in this way, we see that the change is not a straight line, but it's a constant evolution, in which we learn to embrace your imperfections, a celebration of small wins, and keep the hope alive, even in moments of the most challenging. Considering all this, it becomes clear that the real magic of a lasting transformation and is willing to look beyond the surface and question what we believe to be the truth. Because deep down, every big change starts with one simple decision, to decide whether to allow you to see the world and themselves with new eyes. And in so doing, we open the doors to a new reality, a reality in which we are actors, designers, and most of all, the authors of our own story. He comments that, "It makes no sense to me. I now want to go more in depth on this subject, for it is precisely at this point that many will begin to understand that true transformation is not only in the actions of the surface or of the changes of the outside, but on the way we see and interpret everything around us. This is a change of perspective. It's like a new lens that, when raised, reveals the details before you invisible, and it's the nuances that were missed, but they carry an extraordinary impact on our journey. When we look at our own decision-making with this new insight, we can begin to understand that they are, in fact, the bridges that bring us to this new world that we want to build. And this realization brings you to a liability which, at first, it may seem daunting, but in fact, it's liberating, because it puts us in control of our own destiny. The big revelation here is that the real evil was born with this ability to take on the role of the main character. You become the author of your own destiny. It's as if, suddenly, you realize that the whole of the story we tell ourselves about what we can and cannot do, about what is possible or impossible, it is, in the main part of the narrative that is created by one's own limitations and beliefs. And then, when you begin to question those stories, to break down this script, which had often been imposed by outside opinion or for an education, not to serve anymore, we open up space for new possibilities. These opportunities, in turn, has the potential to transform not only our actions, but to the whole of our way of thinking and doing, that we have to look at the world in a way that is more comprehensive, more real, and more in tune with who you really are, or we can make it. This is a change of mindset, is like a master key that unlocks doors to build it before it seemed to be closed or locked locked away forever. When we are able to see beyond the limitations that are imposed by the fear, the doubt, or insecurity, you have the opportunity to make choices that are more conscious, to act with purpose, and above all, to create a new narrative for our lives. And it is at this point where things start to get a different size, because we find that the impact of our decision-making extends far beyond the immediate future. By tapping on the invisible thread that connects our emotions, our beliefs, and, ultimately, in our deepest core. In this connection, our authenticity and gives us the strength to move forward even when the path seems too difficult or unknown. And it is precisely at this point that many people miss, because when you realize that it can be, they are also faced with an internal conflict. On the one hand, there is a desire to change, to evolve, to break the old patterns. On the other hand, there is the fear of the unknown, the fear of leaving behind what was already in the family, even if that family is the most limited. This internal struggle is a natural, and it is she who reveals the true essence of the process of transformation. The more you go deeper in the understanding, the more we realize that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to follow through, even to him. And this courage is born precisely on the understanding that we are the creators of our own story. The story of the fear and the doubt, it's just a page in which we can rewrite it at any time. When you think about all of this, it is clear that the transformation that we seek is not a one-off event, but a continuous journey of self-discovery and learning. Each made a conscious decision, each of the look renewed, each belief is challenged, is a piece that makes this a great game. And then, in the midst of it all, you realize that the biggest impact of this change in mindset is the freedom to be who you truly want to be, to live according to our deepest values, and building, a fact that reflects the core of who we, closer to the truth. Because deep down, all of this change, it's a matter of alignment, connecting you with the things that really matter to each and every one of us. And while the story deepens, it becomes in a sense that we are only just beginning to uncover the deeper layers of this truth that is hidden. It is often overlooked in the rush of day to day. It's like a seed that needs to be done with care, patience, and courage to you at the right time, to be able to flower and reveal its full beauty. And in the process, we learn that every step taken in the direction of our growth is an achievement in itself, and a reassurance that you're able to transform the impact of our decision in our history. After all, you are to understand that we are the authors of their own destiny is the first step on a journey for truth, authenticity, and commitment. And with this in mind, it's clear. Our mission is to continue finding out who our true selves, always, with this lookout for our own truth and to the possibilities that lie behind them. He comments that, "It makes no sense to me. Right now, I want you to go deeper in the subject line, because that is the transformation we seek, is not only a change in the attitude of the surface, but for the real revolution on the inside." It is as if, on the understanding that we are the authors of our story, we begin to unravel the layers of hidden nodes, the same ones that are hidden under the weight of the opinion of others. Their fears are not addressed, and the limiting beliefs that often don't even realize that we have. In this process, the mind becomes a fertile ground for the seeds of new possibilities, and the impact of this change will go far beyond what we imagined them to you initially. The truth hides behind all this journey is that no matter how they try to control the outside world, the real power lies in our ability to transform the house. This is where you come to the idea that our choices, however small they may seem, they have a ripple effect on the whole of our experience. Every choice, every thought, every emotion, grown or declined, you will in shaping our own destiny in a way that a lot of times we are not able to understand right away. This is the awareness that we are all responsible for this effect, gives us a freedom that is huge, because it goes to no longer be a matter of luck or fate, but that of the in-depth understanding of what we can do in a different way, creating new roots and, thus, to turn what seemed to be a fixed, unchanging. However, this is a journey of self-discovery has also revealed a series of behind-the-scenes than most people prefer to ignore it. The truth is, behind every decision we make, there is a history of resistance, fear, and a lot of times, it's a never-ending quest for acceptance. These roots of our behavior can be so deeply rooted that when you try to change it, you feel a resistance, and almost visceral, as if something inside of us to try to stop you from moving forward. It is at this point that you realize just how much our way of thinking has been shaped by his past experiences, trauma, on the expectation that it is not always possible to confront the guy to clean up. These signs, often unpleasant, is essential in order for us to be able to really evolve, because only in this way we were able to understand what is really behind our actions, and most importantly, how can we reschedule for this story. This reprogramming in its turn takes courage. It is not an easy task, as it requires us to face the truths they'd rather hide it, and that we look forward to our very limits. And when you do that, you start to realize that the change is not a one-off event, but a process of continuous improvement of the internal settings, which will be strengthened over time. Each and every small decision to act in a different way, each and every moment's thought is sincere, which builds a new layer of authenticity in our lives. And so, the journey of transformation to become a genuine search for the truth, a trip behind the scenes of our being, where we find that the greatest impact, it is is those details that you take for granted, such as our automatic thoughts, our emotions, repressed or beliefs that are rooted in early childhood. At this point, it is crucial to understand that such a change in mentality doesn't happen at one time or another, but that, by means of a dedication to a genuine desire to get to know you better, the courage to accept who we really are, with all our imperfections, this is the one that leads to inner freedom and is able to turn any situation. This freedom, in turn, gives us the ability to make choices that are more conscious and to create connections in a more real with the people around you and have a positive impact on the world, even if in silence. After all, when we take responsibility for our own path, we begin to realize that the biggest secret to it is the thing that we carry it within us, our authenticity, and the courage to be who you really are, regardless of what others might think. According to this understanding, if it is deeper, it becomes clear that the journey doesn't end at the changes in the behavior or the adoption of new routines. It is a constant search for an alignment between the way we think, feel, and act. This leads us to explore our own personal truths, and many times, as revealed in the quiet moments, in moments of reflection. It is in silence that we find the answer we have been searching for, the ones that show us just how strong is the impact of a mentality that is well aligned with our values to be true. After all, that's the true transformation are born of this tune in the inside, this deep connection to the things that are. In fact, often it is hidden behind a mask or a routine, etc. So if you think about all of this, we realized that the real journey of change, it is a journey of self-discovery, continuous, in a constant revelation of who we are and who we can become. With every step, however small it may seem, it is an affirmation that we have the power to rewrite our story, to turn our limitations into strength, and create a reality that is in alignment with our purpose, the most genuine one. And in the process, and the impact it can have on the world, is out of proportion to the courage we need to face our own truths, and to challenge our long-held beliefs, and to open ourselves up to the new one. Because at the end, the greatest strength is the courage to be who you really are, even if it means walking the paths of an unknown filled with revelations, and the discovery that the only one who truly knows you can't admire their freedom. He comments that, "It makes no sense to me. If you've come this far, it's because I really connected with this thought, and I wanted to dive deeper into this topic that is so important. Maybe, along the way, you may have noticed that the biggest step in this is just to allow you to look inward, to challenge what seemed to be fixed, and to open up space for new possibilities. And it often requires a dose of courage to be that it's not always easy to find, but it makes a world of difference in our journey of growth. If you found this content has brought a lot of insight, useful, we invite you to subscribe to the channel. Here, we always seek to share that will help you to better understand who we are and how we can change our lives in a way that's more aware of it. Oh, and if you like it, leave a comment saying, "I'm with you till the end," or something to show you that this message has touched you in some way. I like to know that what they share is a sense, and it stays with you in some shape or form. Before going to the next video, I want to give you a hint. There's a video right here on the side, which complements this subject. You can click on there and it keeps me on the go. Thus, we are able to drill down further the conversation and build on this think tank together. I hope to see you there, and of course, thank you very much you have been to the end. See you next time.